The Enneads by Plotinus, First Ennead, First Tractate, The Animate and the Man, Chapter 1. Pleasure and distress, fear and courage, desire and aversion, where have these affections and experiences their seat? Clearly, either in the soul alone, or in the soul as employing the body, or in some third entity deriving from both. And for this third entity again, there are two possible modes. It might be either a blend or a distinct form due to the blending. And what applies to the affections applies also to whatsoever acts, physical or mental, spring from them. We have, therefore, to examine discursive reason and the ordinary mental action upon objects of sense, and inquire whether these have the one seat with the affections and experiences, or perhaps sometimes the one seat, sometimes another. And we must consider also our acts of intellection, their mode and their seat, and this very examining principle, which investigates and decides in these matters, must be brought to light. Firstly, what is the seat of sense perception? This is the obvious beginning, since the affections and experiences either are sensations of some kind, or at least never occur apart from sensation. Chapter 2. This first inquiry obliges us to consider at the outset the nature of the soul, that is, whether a distinction is to be made between the soul and the essential soul, between an individual soul and the soul kind in itself. If such a distinction holds, then the soul in man is some sort of composite, and at once we may agree that it is a recipient, and, if only reason allows, that all the affections and experiences really have their seat in the soul, and with the affections every state and mood, good and bad alike. But if the soul in man and the essential soul are one and the same, then the soul will be an ideal form, unreceptive of all those activities which it imparts to another kind, but possessing within itself that native act of its own which reason manifests. If this be so, then indeed we may think of the soul as an immortal. If the immortal, the imperishable, must be impassive, giving out something of itself, but itself taking nothing from without, except for what it receives from existence prior to itself, from which existence, in that they are nobler, it cannot be sundered. Now, what could bring fear to a nature thus unreceptive of all the outer? Fear demands feeling, nor is there a place for courage. Courage implies the presence of danger, and such desires as are satisfied by the filling or voiding of the body must be proper to something very different from the soul, to that only which admits of replenishment and voidance. And how could the soul lend itself to any admixture? An essential is not mixed, or of the intrusion of anything alien. If it did, it would be seeking the destruction of its own nature. Pain must be equally far from it, and grief, how or for what could it grieve? Whatever possesses existence is supremely free, dwelling unchangeable within its own peculiar nature. And can any increase bring joy where nothing, not even anything good, can accrue? What such an existent is, it is unchangeably. Thus, assuredly, sense perception, discursive reasoning, and all our ordinary mentation are foreign to the soul. For sensation is a receiving, whether of an ideal form or of an impassive body, and reasoning and all the ordinary mental action deal with sensation. The question still remains to be examined in the matter of the intellections, whether these are to be assigned to the soul, and as to pure pleasure, whether it belongs to the soul in its solitary state. Chapter 3. We may treat the soul as in the body, whether it be set above it or actually within it, since the association of the two constitutes the one thing called the living organism, the animate. Now, from this relation, from the soul using the body as an instrument, It does not follow that the soul must share the body's experiences. A man does not himself feel all the experiences of the tools with which he is working. It may be objected that the soul must, however, have sense perception, since its use of the instrument must acquaint it with the external conditions, and such knowledge comes by way of sense. Thus, it will be argued, the eyes are the instrument of seeing, and that seeing may bring distress to the soul. Hence, the soul may feel sorrow and pain and every other affection that belongs to the body. And from this again will spring desire, the soul seeking the mending of its instrument. But we ask, how, possibly, can these affections pass from body to soul? Body may communicate qualities or condition to another body, but body to soul? Something happens to A, does that make it happen to B? As long as we have agent and instrument, there are two distinct entities. If the soul uses the body, it is separate from it. But apart from the philosophical separation, how does the soul stand to the body? Clearly, there is a combination, and for this several modes are possible. There might be a complete coalescence. Soul might be interwoven through the body, or it might be an ideal form detached, or an ideal form in governing contact like a pilot, or there might be part of the soul detached and another part in contact, the disjoined part being the agent or the user, the conjoined part ranking with the instrument or thing being used. In this last case, it will be the double task of philosophy to direct this lower soul towards the higher, the agent, and, except in so far as the conjunction is absolutely necessary, to sever the agent from the instrument, the body, so that it need not forever have its act upon or through this inferior.